Okay, let's take a look at number 3 on the practice exam. So it's just some limits. So none of them exist. The answer is plus or minus infinity for all of them. Okay, so let's just start working on them. So let's look at A is a left-hand limit. So just to remind you, this little minus sign here means that we're creeping up on negative 3 from the side of the negative. So we're, creep, 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 creep from the left. Okay, so what happens is we creep, creep, creep from the left towards negative 3 to this quotient here. So let's see. So on top we're going to have something like negative 3 plus 2. So that's just going to be negative 1. So we're going to have something like negative 1 on top, something pretty close to that. And then as we creep up on negative 3 from the left down here, that means that x is always going to be just a little bit less than negative 3. And so that's going to make this a small negative. And if you don't immediately see that, let me just show you. So let's say that x is like negative 3.1. So that's something just to the left of negative 3, right? Then on the bottom I would have negative 3.1 plus 3 is a small negative. Okay, so that's why I say we have a small negative down here on the bottom. So what is negative 1 over a small negative? It's just like 1 over small, okay, because the negative signs cancel. And so this is just a big number. And so the answer for A is positive infinity. Okay, so it's plus or minus infinity for all of them, but for A it's positive. Now let's take a look at B. Here is the same problem, but now we're going to creep up on 3 from the right. So let me get out my red marker here. So now we're going to creep, 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 creep on 3 from the right, okay? And it's this plus sign here that tells us that we're going from the right. So what are we going to have in this situation? Well, we're still going to have something close to negative 3 plus 2 on top. It's like negative 1 on top, something pretty close to that. And then on the bottom, we're going to have something pretty close to negative 3, but now it's pretty close to negative 3 on the right-hand side. So what's a number like that? A number like that is like negative 2.9, right? That's a number that's pretty close to positive 3 on the right. And so on the bottom here with x plus 3, when x gets close to 3 on the right, we're going to have something down there like negative 2.9 plus 3. And this is going to be like 0.1, right? So I'm going to call this small positive, small pos. Okay. So in B here, what we're getting is negative 1, sorry about my random strokes, over a small positive, small pos. Okay, now unlike in part A, there's no negative sign to cancel on the bottom, so this is just going to be something big and negative, big negative. Okay, and so, right, so, when you do this kind of thing and you get big negative, that means that the limit is minus infinity. So the answer for B is minus infinity. Okay, alright. And that's because as x gets closer and closer to negative 3, the small thing on the bottom, it's always going to be positive because we're going from the right. It's going to get smaller and smaller because it's getting closer and closer to 3. And so this is going to become a bigger and bigger negative. And so in the limit, it's negative infinity. Alright. And now let's take a look at C. Okay, so here is C. Alright. You notice that there is a squared expression in the denominator. So whenever you see a square, once you get to be old and sly, you think, oh, square means it's always positive, right? Because anything squared is positive. So that's something that we should keep in mind, okay? So what happens is x gets closer to 1. They don't give us a side here. So let's just imagine that x is close to 1. So on top we're going to have something like 2 minus 1 is 1. And on the bottom we're going to have something really tiny, right? Because x is going to be close to 1, and we're going to square it, and the square is going to make it positive, whatever it is. Okay, so it's small positive, just small pos. Okay, so what's the reciprocal of a small positive is a big positive. Okay. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So just like last time, the closer that x gets to 1, the smaller things are going to be down here. There's no crisis happening upstairs because you're just getting close to 1, and that's just an ordinary number. But what makes it weird is that you're getting close to 0 on the bottom. But at any rate, the closer you get to 1, the smaller the thing on the bottom gets, and so the bigger the reciprocal gets. So in the limit, this is infinity. And so the answer to C here is positive infinity. Okay, so now let's go on to D. All right. And so, whoa, this is the craziest one of all. Okay, but just like the other times, there's nothing really remarkable happening on top. You've got x minus 1 on top, and as x goes to 0, you're just going to get negative 1 on top. So nothing unusual about that. Okay, and what's going to happen on the bottom? We're going to have, let's take it case by case here. So x plus 2, this thing is going to just be getting closer and closer to 2. Okay, it's going to be getting closer and closer to 2, and 2 is just an ordinary value. But look at this, okay? You've got x squared here. As x gets close to 0, it's going to be getting very small, either positive or negative. But the square, again, is going to force it to be positive. So we have a small positive here, small positive. Okay. So it's true that we have the negative 1 up here. We have a 2 down here, but you know, a small positive times 2 is still a small positive. I hope you agree with me about that. So basically I have negative 1 over a small positive. It's not a smelly positive, it's a small one. Alright, and now the negative, okay, is going to make things negative, okay, because there's no negative to cancel it on the bottom. But besides the negative sign, we've got the reciprocal of a small positive, and so that's going to be, you know, the negative of a big positive, which I guess I should just be calling a big negative. Okay, so it's a big negative. Okay, and so that means that the answer for D is minus infinity. And that's the end of the question.